The dress embraced my form, its weight bearing down on me, yet it was not nearly as burdensome as the destiny that now ensnared me. The edge of the fabric flowed behind me, gliding over the soft red carpet with each step I made. Every motion resonated softly within the expansive church hall, a grand space that appeared to consume sound entirely. The stillness was nearly overwhelming, interrupted solely by the gentle, hushed murmurs of the attendees nestled in the pews. Their voices hummed softly, reminiscent of distant bees, weaving an unspoken tension beneath the surface. They were aware. Everyone understood that this union was not rooted in affection. It was an exchange, a carefully designed arrangement adorned with elegance and refinement. My gaze ascended, fixating on the figure at the altar, Damien Carter. The mere mention evoked visions of dominance and unwavering authority. The billionaire CEO of Carter Enterprises, heir to a vast empire that stretches across continents, and now, my husband. He never glanced my way, not even a single time. His dark suit clung to his form, a striking contrast to his fair complexion. His stance was stiff and resolute, his features defined, chiseled like frigid stone. Stunning, indeed, yet lacking in warmth. His expression remained utterly blank, devoid of any feeling, uncertainty, or hint of compassion. He didn't appear as a groom caught in the throes of love, instead, he resembled a man standing before a judge, bracing himself for the weight of a verdict with somber determination. What about me? I shared that sentiment. My heart raced within me, a chaotic beat that was far removed from any sense of thrill or happiness. It was a tumultuous wave of unease, sharp and relentless, tearing at my core. Fear coiled within me, intertwining with an overwhelming dread that murmured the undeniable reality I couldn't evade: my life was irrevocably altered. The murmurs enveloped me as I approached him, a symphony of intrigue and scrutiny. Their gaze enveloped me, a multitude of eyes, sharp and unyielding, cutting through the delicate curtain that surrounded my features. The ladies of elite circles, adorned in their exquisite gowns, scrutinized every nuance, the way the fabric embraced my form, the subtle quiver of my hands, the strange smile that graced my lips. In their eyes, I was merely the undesirable bride, a piece in a much larger scheme beyond my control. The priest's voice sliced through the fog, initiating the ceremony with words that seemed far away, as if they were part of another's tale. I attempted to calm my breath, directing my attention away from the man next to me. Damien remained motionless, a figure frozen in time, as though my presence had vanished into thin air. His presence was an emptiness, drawing the breath from the atmosphere surrounding us. I was merely an afterthought to him, a mere formality. Then arrived the moment I had been fearing. Damien Carter, do you accept Elizabeth Monroe as your legally wedded wife? The ensuing silence was excruciating. It extended endlessly, dense and oppressive, encircling me like a constricting bind. In a brief moment, my heart came to a standstill. Time dragged on, and an exhilarating, improbable hope ignited within me. Perhaps he would decline. Perhaps he would look away and liberate me from this ornate prison. Yet, his voice resonated, rich and steadfast. I certainly do. Just a couple of words. Chilly. Mechanical. Absolutely certain, completely devoid of emotion. A constriction gripped my chest, a sudden jolt piercing through me. The moment had arrived for me. My mouth felt parched, my tongue weighed down like a stone. A torrent of thoughts surged through my mind, racing, shouting, ripping off this dress and dashing for the exits. But what difference would that make? I felt like a mere pawn on a chessboard, manipulated by forces beyond my control. When I finally found my voice, it was soft, delicate, and scarcely heard. I certainly do. The moment arrived for the exchange of rings, binding our promises with the chill of metal. Damien grasped my hand, his grip cold and devoid of warmth. He placed the band onto my finger with exactness, devoid of lingering warmth, devoid of a gentle squeeze. There was no indication that I held any significance beyond being a responsibility to him. His indifference pierced through me, a subtle dismissal that resonated deep within my very being. The ceremony unfolded, a haze of phrases and traditions, until the priest's concluding proclamation jolted me back to the present. It is now time for the couple to share their first kiss as a married pair. My heart raced. For the first time since I had traversed that seemingly infinite aisle, Damien turned to meet my gaze. As our eyes locked, his gaze enveloped me, a palpable presence that pressed down upon my very being. His eyes were deep, enigmatic voids that disclosed nothing, lacking desire, lacking tenderness, merely offering scrutiny. He leaned in, each movement intentional and measured. His lips grazed my cheek, a momentary, delicate caress that lingered for hardly an instant. It was not a kiss. It was merely a procedure, a tick on a checklist. Then he withdrew, his focus shifting immediately, as if I had vanished the instant the action was completed. The reception unfolded, a flurry of clinking glasses and strained grins. Damien navigated the space with the finesse of a seasoned professional, greeting investors with firm handshakes and light banter, effortlessly engaging in the intricate dance of influence. I remained beside him, quiet and decorative, a charming embellishment in a realm that felt foreign to me. As the final guest started to leave, a lump formed in my throat. The evening had yet to reach its conclusion. The moment I had been anticipating with trepidation approached, the wedding night. I expected he would overlook me, just like he had throughout the day, that he would withdraw into his realm of dominance and allow me to remain in my own. As we entered the polished black car awaiting us outside, the atmosphere between us transformed. The engine purred, cutting through the shadowy city streets, and the stillness within the vehicle deepened with each fleeting moment. Damien fixed his gaze forward, one hand gripping the wheel while the other lay relaxed on his knee. The gold band on his finger shimmered beneath the streetlights, a testament to a promise he appeared to disregard. My dress, once a symbol of grace, now seemed like a confinement. Their weight clung to me, binding me to a world I was powerless to alter. I longed to express myself, to break through the unseen barrier that separated us, yet the words eluded me. As we arrived at the penthouse, our new abode, a shiver coursed through me. The elevator ride felt stifling, the silence hanging heavily in the air between us. Damien stood as an unwavering bastion of calm, his face a mask of inscrutability. My chest rose and fell gently as I struggled to maintain my composure. I was aware of what was about to unfold. The night of the wedding. My hands became damp, and my heartbeat raced as he turned the key in the lock of the apartment door. The environment was breathtaking, polished, opulent, and completely devoid of warmth. Chilly stone surfaces, sleek furnishings, subdued colors. It mirrored his essence, immaculate, aloof, beyond reach. His footsteps reverberated as he nonchalantly shrugged off his jacket, flinging it haphazardly over a chair. I remained motionless, anchored in place, until his voice shattered the silence. The second door on the left leads to your room. My breath caught in my throat. That was the end of it. Neither sharp remarks nor expectations, only a serene, icy detachment. He had no desire for my presence. And in some way, that pain cut deeper than I had anticipated. I swallowed hard, the knot in my throat stubbornly remaining as Damien's words lingered in the atmosphere. The second door on the left leads to your room. It's freezing. It feels so definitive. It felt like a barrier had been erected between us, two distinct existences tethered by a promise neither of us had wished for. A peculiar ache gripped my chest, a blend of relief intertwined with an elusive sharpness, something I struggled to identify. He wished for my absence. He preferred to keep his distance from me. And yet, that rejection ate away at me in ways I hadn't expected. I advanced cautiously, the sound of my heels gently echoing on the marble surface. The noise pierced through the silence, too vivid in this pristine, opulent confinement. I have something to express. Everything. To breach the shield of his apathy. What could I possibly say to someone who had made it evident that I was merely a duty to him? Well, that's all there is to it. My voice emerged softer than I had hoped, quivering just a bit as it pierced the stillness. Damien took a brief moment to reflect. I expected him to completely overlook me, allowing my question to fade away into the emptiness that lay between us. But then he turned with a measured slowness, and our eyes locked in a moment of connection. They embodied an abyss, profound and inscrutable, with an edge that could slice through the very fabric of reality. He observed me, his eyes resting on me longer than they had throughout the day. It lacked warmth. I observed him, devoid of curiosity, merely a frigid, analytical evaluation, as though he were attempting to comprehend why I had the audacity to utter a word. A subtle smile played at the edge of his lips. It lacked kindness. It was not entertained. It was frigid, lacking any genuine feeling. "What were your expectations?" he inquired, his voice hushed and laced with an intensity that sent a shiver through me. The question struck me with unexpected force. What was I anticipating? A glimmer of connection? Could this be a sign that this union held significance for him? I had been naive to expect anything whatsoever. Heat crawled up my neck, a wave of embarrassment igniting my skin. He was indifferent. He viewed me not as a partner or even as a person, but merely as a weight he had to bear, a stipulation in a deal from which he felt trapped. Yet, a transformation occurred within me. If he isn't interested, why should I remain here quietly pleading for his notice? Why should I allow his indifference to determine my emotions? I aligned my posture, raising my chin as I folded my arms across my chest. Nothing, I deceived, striving to keep my voice calm. I anticipated absolutely nothing. I pivoted sharply, resolved to leave with at least a fragment of my dignity preserved. With each step I took toward the room he had designated for me, the sound of my footsteps resonated, a quiet defiance against the heaviness that clung to my heart. I refused to show him the impact of his words on me. I refused to grant him that kind of influence. Yet, his voice froze me in my tracks. "Well done." The words lingered softly, nearly a murmur, yet they cut through the silence with the precision of a sharp edge. My feet became immobile, anchored to the ground as a wave of warmth surged through me. It wasn't the expression itself that resonated with me. His tone was low and dangerous, carrying an edge that was neither mockery nor indifference, but rather a calculated challenge. A trial. I shifted my gaze, casting a look back at him from over my shoulder. He remained still, yet his eyes had lost their chill. They were keen, concentrated, fixated on me with a fervor that charged the atmosphere. In that moment, I came to the unsettling realization that I may have misjudged him. Perhaps Damon Carter's aloofness was merely a facade. Perhaps he had been observing me from the shadows, eager to discover my next move. My breath hitched in my throat. The air around us buzzed with an unarticulated energy, a vibrant presence that lingered in the silence. I was still bound to him, not even close to being free. And deep within, I understood I never truly would be. The bedroom door stood before me, and I compelled myself to continue forward. My hands quivered ever so slightly as I nudged it open, entering a realm that was both stunning and solitary. The chamber was vast, overwhelmingly opulent for a person who felt diminutive in that instant. A grand bed occupied the heart of the room, adorned with pristine white sheets that appeared immaculate, bordering on sterile. Dark wood furniture shimmered beneath the gentle illumination of a minimalist chandelier, while floor-to-ceiling windows framed an expansive view of the city skyline, its lights twinkling like distant stars just out of reach. I exhaled unsteadily, my hands finding their place on the smooth surface of the dresser. The mirror above it revealed a woman I scarcely recognized, wide-eyed and flushed, still enveloped in the delicate lace of her wedding gown. He had no desire for me. I ought to have felt a sense of relief. I ought to have embraced the distance, the solitude. However, I was not. "Good girl," resonated in my thoughts, looping in that dangerous, smooth cadence. What could he have meant? Did it serve as a provocation, a caution, or an invitation to confront? My grip on the wood intensified, my heart pounding as I struggled to banish the thought from my mind. It was merely inconsequential. He was insignificant. This union held no significance. I lifted my hands, gently unfastening the clasps of my dress. The material gracefully slipped from my shoulders, pooling at my feet in a delicate flow of white lace and silk. Underneath, a delicate satin slip clung to me, its coolness sharply contrasting with the warmth radiating from my skin. I emerged from the gown, discarding it like a snake shedding its skin, and made my way across the room to the bed. The fabric felt frigid against my skin as I nestled under the sheets, drawing the covers snugly to my chin. I shut my eyes, urging my thoughts to settle, my heartbeat to ease. This was the way the evening would conclude, solitary, unacknowledged, overlooked. Wasn't that what I desired? Suddenly, the door let out a haunting creak as it opened. My breath caught in my throat. The sound was faint, almost imperceptible, yet it coursed through my body like a sudden shock. I remained motionless, each muscle coiling tight as the distant sound of footsteps filtered through the air, slow and purposeful, laden with purpose. He was present. My heart raced within my chest, a chaotic rhythm that overshadowed all other sounds. I ought to have feigned sleep, remained motionless, and allowed him to depart. Yet my body let me down. Gradually, I shifted my gaze to the door, and there he stood. Damon lingered in the doorway, his jacket absent, tie askew, and the top buttons of his shirt undone. The faint glow created silhouettes on his face, yet his eyes shone fiercely, unwavering in their intensity. They held me firmly, tearing down the facade of composure I had desperately attempted to maintain. In that moment, I experienced a profound sense of recognition. The atmosphere in the room grew dense as Damon lingered, his figure casting a shadow in the entrance. My fingers gripped the sheets tightly, the fabric creasing beneath my hold as my heartbeat roared in my ears. He remained still, for the moment, yet his mere presence was sufficient to alter the entire atmosphere. The man who once stood at the altar, cold and detached, had vanished, leaving behind a presence that was darker, that sent a shiver of awareness across my skin. He advanced, each step a soft reverberation upon the polished marble surface. My breath caught, suspended in a delicate balance of fear and an unexpected, exhilarating excitement. He had cast aside the day's formality, his jacket thrown aside, his tie hanging loosely. The white shirt, a bit wrinkled, exposed a hint of collarbone that rendered him less aloof, more relatable. And yet, those eyes, they conveyed a different story entirely. They focused on me, fierce and relentless, dismantling the barriers I had attempted to construct over the past few hours. I ought to have expressed myself. I should have insisted on understanding why he was present after treating me with such indifference. Yet my throat felt parched, my tongue rendered ineffective. He paused at the brink of the bed, proximity palpable, his shadow looming over me. The aroma of him, earthy and inviting, laced with a subtle hint of whiskey, enveloped me, both alluring and perilous. My body tightened, each nerve firing as he loomed over me. "You ought to be sleeping," he murmured, his voice deep and textured, reminiscent of gravel gliding over smooth silk. His tone held an elusive quality that I couldn't quite identify, sending a shiver racing down my spine. I took a deep breath, compelling myself to hold his stare. "You ought to as well." The words escaped my lips before I could rein them in, a feeble gesture of rebellion. For a moment, silence lingered between us, thick and electric. Then the corner of his mouth twitched, revealing the faintest trace of a smile. Yet, it lacked any trace of humor. It was keen, fierce, reminiscent of a wolf revealing its fangs. He tilted his head, his dark eyes roaming over my face, pausing on my lips, my flushed cheeks, the way my chest rose and fell too quickly beneath the delicate satin of my slip. He leaned in, steadying himself with one hand on the headboard. The mattress sagged gently beneath his weight, and I sensed the warmth emanating from him, so close that I could nearly savor it. His breath caressed my ear, a gentle warmth that sent a shiver through my entire being. I was frozen, my mind a blank slate, with him so near, the atmosphere charged like the moments before a tempest. "But how on earth do you expect me to sleep?" he murmured, his voice lowering to a seductive whisper. "When you realize that you are mine now." My heart froze in that moment. The world shifted, and for an instant, I questioned whether I had truly understood him. "You are mine now." The words enveloped me, weighty and commanding, sparking a flame I was unaware existed within. I ought to have stood my ground. I ought to have made it clear that I was not tied to anyone, especially not to him. Yet, I found myself unable to do so. My lips parted, yet silence enveloped me. I found myself ensnared, not by his grip, but by the heaviness of his stare, the conviction in his voice. He drew back slightly to meet my gaze, his eyes probing into mine. He was observing me once more, noting every subtle shift of feeling that passed through my visage. The way my breath faltered, the way my fingers gripped the sheets, and he found it appealing. The subtle arch of his lips revealed a hidden truth, while the deepening shade of his pupils spoke volumes. He flourished in this, in my doubt, my turmoil, the quiet conflict simmering within me. "You're anxious," he remarked, his voice a languid, tempting lilt that entertained me. My lips parted, a protest brewing within, yet silence prevailed. He was correct. I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me, coming apart at the seams under the weight of his gaze, and he was fully aware of it. Even more troubling, he found pleasure in it. Before I could discover my voice, his hand darted swiftly, with purpose. His fingers wrapped around my wrist, warm and steady, and with a single, graceful movement, he lifted me to my feet. I inhaled sharply, lurching ahead. My form met his with a sudden impact. My hands moved to his shoulders, clutching the fabric of his shirt as warmth radiated through me at our point of contact. His chest was firm, resolute, and I could sense the rhythmic pulse of his heartbeat beneath my hands, steady, composed, a stark contrast to my own. My heart raced, erratic and wild, as I looked up at him, ensnared in the tempest of his gaze. "What are you up to?" My voice quivered, revealing my vulnerability, and I despised the delicate tone that escaped me. He remained unyielding. His gaze pierced through me, intense and unwavering, a glance that sent a shiver down my spine and left me feeling unsteady. "Carrying out the task you've anticipated," he stated, his voice low and resolute. In one fluid motion, he pressed me against the wall. The breath escaped me as my back connected with the chill of the ground. His body was now too close, trapping me within its confines. One hand anchored beside my head, the other firmly clasping my wrist. He embodied heat and strength, an overwhelming presence that saturated every aspect of my senses. I quivered, my breath light, my thoughts swirling. Yet, it wasn't trepidation surging within me. It was an emotion far more perilous, anticipation. I had never experienced such proximity to a man, nor had I ever felt the profound impact of someone's touch in this way. The heat of his touch lingered on my wrist, a tantalizing ache radiating through my body. I stood pristine, unchallenged, a canvas in a realm I had only ever envisioned. And now here he stood, Damon Carter, the man who had taken me without consent, the man whose apathy had transformed into something raw, something I couldn't evade. His gaze followed every nuance of my being, the rapid ascent and descent of my breath, the slight parting of my lips, the way my fingers danced against his shoulders. He observed everything, absorbed it completely, and I was unable to conceal anything. "Tell me, Elizabeth," he murmured, his lips tantalizingly near my ear. His voice was a smooth edge slicing through the remnants of my determination. "Would you like me to cease?" I ought to have agreed. It was the logical decision, the secure option. I ought to have distanced myself, taken back the space he had encroached upon. Yet my silence lingered for just 1 second too long, and that was precisely what he required. His smile was a force to be reckoned with, deliberate, mischievous, and filled with victory. "That was my impression," he remarked. Time appeared to stand still as Damon's words resonated deeply. His breath lingered, a warm whisper against my ear. Time didn't merely slow, it came to a complete halt, leaving me caught in the intensity of his gaze, the weight of his body pressed against mine. He remained still, unblinking. His grip remained steady on my wrist, not so tight as to cause pain, yet possessive enough to send my heart racing. It felt like a challenge, a provocation, as though he anticipated my retreat, eager for the thrill of reeling me in once more. My chest rose and fell, breaths rapid and shallow, revealing the turmoil within. I felt the urge to voice my thoughts, to shatter this enchantment, to regain a fragment of authority. Yet my voice remained ensnared, suffocated under the heaviness of his existence. All I could do was gaze into those dark eyes, eyes that had transformed from icy indifference to something searing, something that consumed every nuance of my response. And that was my error, gazing at him. As soon as I did, his gaze deepened, a shadow crossing his face that revealed one undeniable truth: he wasn't going to release his grip. I gulped, feeling the constriction in my throat. "Damon," my voice came out as a mere whisper, scarcely discernible, a plea that eluded my own comprehension. He remained silent, offering no verbal response. His gaze wandered over my features, tracing each quiver, each blush, as though he were etching me into his mind. He found this enjoyable. Enjoyed witnessing my unraveling, relished the knowledge that he was the reason behind it. I ought to have despised him for that. I ought to have loathed the manner in which he manipulated me, the way he brandished his authority as if it were a sword. Yet the reality, the painful, searing reality, was that I did not. My body vibrated with an unidentifiable desire, a yearning that contradicted every logical thought echoing in my mind. The stillness enveloping us became charged, a tension pulled to its limit. Then he spoke, his voice slicing through the fog with precision. "This marriage was never my desire." My breath caught in my chest, a piercing ache coiling within me. I was already aware of that. I sensed it the instant I stepped onto that aisle, observing how he remained at the altar, rigid and unyielding like a statue hewn from ice. Yet, listening to it in its purest form now, it pierced deeper than I had anticipated. "I understand," I persevered, my voice delicate yet unwavering. He leaned in, his face drawing nearer as his lips brushed against my ear. His next words dismantled every fantasy I had held on to. However, at this moment, I possessed that understanding. The world whirled around me, my stomach dropped, and my body tensed, ensnared by the weight of his revelation. Damon Carter. Unyielding, invincible. Damon Carter desired me, not the agreement, not the terms, but me. The epiphany crashed over me, silencing the chaos within my thoughts. He had moved beyond mere play. This was genuine. This was his declaration, and I understood that he never spoke without intention. The atmosphere enveloped us, heavy with an electric energy that felt both fierce and unrestrained. He wasn't the figure who had overlooked me at the altar, the executive who had sealed our fates without a moment's thought. He had transformed into something extraordinary, something that ignited, something that devoured. My body betrayed me, warmth gathering deep within, a tingling sensation spreading across my skin where his fingers lingered on my wrist. A fierce battle raged within me, urging me to fight back, to distance myself from him, to hold tightly to the fragile remnants of my autonomy. Yet my body had already yielded. Embracing the heat of his presence, yearning for the connection I had never realized I desired. He must have noticed it, the change in my gaze, the way my resolve wavered. When he spoke again, his voice resonated with a low, commanding rumble that determined my destiny. "From this moment on, Elizabeth, you belong to me." My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic, uneven rhythm. I might have chosen to run. I might have chosen to reject the truth, to deceive both myself and him. Yet, I found myself adrift. Enveloped in the intensity of his gaze, the assurance of his caress, the hope woven into his speech. He had triumphed, and I hadn't even noticed we were engaged in a game until it was far too late. His hands glided from my wrist to my waist, drawing me nearer. His fingers sank into the gentle texture of my slip. The texture of his palm brushing against the satin ignited a spark within me, and I inhaled sharply, my hands pressing firmly against his chest. He stood firm, unwavering, a barrier of warmth and strength that I found impossible to break free from. I no longer had the desire for it. I believed I was in command. I believed I could leave this night untouched, control its conclusion. Yet I had been mistaken, profoundly mistaken. The man who had once stood so indifferently at the altar, treating me as if I were merely an afterthought, had completely transformed the narrative. In that moment, I found myself ensnared, quaking beneath his caress, unable to avert my gaze. As his forehead met mine, a shaky breath slipping from his lips, I realized something deeper. This was not solely about my own experience. He was coming apart as well, his calm demeanor fracturing, his defenses collapsing. The man who had never yielded to anyone was now coming to an end, for me. Damon, I murmured once more, gentler this time, a blend of inquiry and yielding in my voice. He remained silent. Instead, his grip on my waist intensified, drawing me closer to him. His other hand glided upward, gently cradling the nape of my neck. His thumb glided over the delicate skin in that spot. My breath caught, my body sparking to life beneath his caress. I remained pure, untainted by anyone prior to him, and the intensity of it, the raw, unfamiliar longing, engulfed me. If you're immersed in this moment like I am, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Press that button now to ensure you don't miss the unfolding drama between Elizabeth and Damon. The distance that once separated us dissolved as Damon's hold intensified, his fingers pressing into my waist with a commanding intensity that ignited a flurry of sensations across my skin. His thumb moved in slow, intentional circles against the nape of my neck, each touch igniting a fire deep inside me. My breath was shallow and quick. My hands rested on his chest, sensing the firm contours of muscle beneath his shirt. He was a powerful presence, relentless and all-consuming, and I found myself drawn into his sphere, unable to escape even if I wished to. I had no desire to. Not any longer. His words lingered in my thoughts. From this moment on, Elizabeth, you belong to me. A proclamation that altered the course of everything. The man who had remained so remote at the altar, who had approached this union as if it were merely a transaction, was now coming apart right in front of me. His forehead rested against mine, his breath uneven, warm, and tinged with the subtle essence of whiskey. It was the initial fissure I had observed in his facade, the first indication that Damon Carter wasn't as untouchable as he appeared. Yet, it wasn't solely him. I found myself fracturing, crumbling beneath the burden of an unfamiliar yearning, a deep craving that had eluded me until now. My naivety, my lack of experience, only intensified everything. I had never experienced a sensation quite like this before. I have never experienced the touch of a man's hands on my skin. I've never experienced the intensity that now surged within me. And yet, with him, it felt familiar. It seemed destined to happen. His lips lingered just above mine, tantalizingly close, as if I could almost savor his essence. My heart raced, a frantic beat that mirrored the turmoil swirling in my mind. I ought to have felt fear. Fearful of him. Apprehensive about this. Fearful of the uncharted territory that lies ahead. But fear had dissipated, giving way to a desire that intensified with each passing moment he embraced me. Then he made his move. His hands glided from my neck to my jaw, lifting my face as his lips grazed against mine. Not a peck. Not at this moment. Merely a playful hint. A gentle touch that left me weak in the knees. I grasped his shirt more firmly, grounding myself as my body shook against his. He drew back slightly to meet my gaze, his eyes intense and fiery, probing mine for any hint of withdrawal. He would not discover it. Not at this moment. The tension broke. His lips collided with mine, intense and possessive, and I inhaled sharply into the kiss, my senses igniting. It lacked tenderness. It was unrefined. Immediate attention required. A clash of desire and limitation ultimately liberated. His hands explored, one gliding down my back to draw me nearer, the other weaving through my hair. I surrendered to him, my naivety slipping away as instinct guided me, my lips meeting his with a passion I never realized I had. He intensified the kiss, a low growl emanating from his chest as he pushed me firmly against the wall. My skin ignited at his touch, the satin gliding away, offering scant protection from the warmth of his hands. He lifted me with ease and grace, my legs instinctively encircling his waist. I felt as if I were floating in a boundless expanse. Devoured. Engulfed by the tempest of his presence. That initial experience was truly enlightening. He approached me with a gentleness that caught me off guard, his actions measured and intentional as he explored my purity, my unblemished form responding to him in a manner that left us both gasping for air. He halted, his gaze momentarily expanding, a glimmer of something gentler piercing the fervor. Yet, on the second occasion, all inhibitions vanished. He was insatiable, ravenous, claiming me with a passion that left me dizzy, as if I were the nourishment he desired for an eternity. My body reacted, bending towards him, yearning for more, even as I fought to keep pace with the overwhelming surge of feeling. By the third time, I had transformed into a different person. A daring individual. Unfettered. An unfamiliar woman. I reached out to him confidently, my hands tracing the lines of his form, delighting in the way he trembled beneath my touch. I surrendered completely, every part of me his to possess. The delight that ensued was beyond anything I had ever envisioned. Fierce. Engaging. Breaking me apart, then piecing me back together within his embrace. That night unfolded, a haze of intertwined sheets and hushed breaths, our bodies reconnecting time and time again. I believed I would be the one yielding. Yet, as time went on, the reality became clear to me. I possessed the strength. With each breath he took, each moment he surrendered to me, I held the reins of power. He could have laid claim to me. Yet I had laid my claim on him as well. Moreover, that was just the beginning. Our union, previously a frigid pact, transformed into something entirely different. Something vibrant. Something genuine. In the moments that came after, we discovered one another. Not limited to the bedroom. Yet, there lies something more. Creating a joy I never thought possible. I had always believed that being tied to someone was like being trapped in a cage. Yet with Damon, it was liberation. He had succumbed first, kneeling before me that night, his eyes filled with longing. And I had pursued, falling headlong into a love that took me by surprise. The man who had brushed me aside at the altar was now the one who found himself unable to imagine life without me. Life without him would be unimaginable. In the quiet aftermath, with his arm resting gently over me and his breath a calming rhythm, a singular truth settled within me. I belonged to him. And he belonged to me. Eternally.